Okay, your next Just Outdoors is going to involve critters of Itasca County. All the different animals that run around that maybe you're not familiar with. We've got a lot of skins here from most of the animals in Itasca County. We're going to talk about each one. And I'm going to have a specialist talk about these critters, not just me, and that's Jeff Hines. Jeff Hines is the Assistant Wildlife Manager for the Grand Rapids area, and we together are going to cover critters like this one here. This is a black groundhog or woodchuck, and this is something that is kind of rare, but we're going to have a lot of animals here we're going to discuss, and stay tuned. Just Outdoors is brought to you in part by
Jervalin Hardware Inc., Deer River. Jervalin Hardware offers a broad selection of paints and sporting goods and a complete line of plumbing and electrical supplies. Jervalin Hardware, 108 Main Avenue, Deer River.
Hi, my name is Tom Chapin, and welcome to Just Outdoors, ICTV. Today, we're going to have a special guest with us. We do have a special guest with us, and that's Jeff Hines. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hi, Tom. Good to see you again.
And Jeff, we're going to be talking about the animals that live in Itasca County. Wild animals.
Sounds good.
And the reason we're doing this is because of the sometimes lack of knowledge from the public on a lot of these animals. And the fact that they even live here in Itasca County. And you're surrounded by wild animals here. We live in an area that has a lot of wild animals. So I thought we could bring in the hides of most of these animals. We don't have them all.
Correct.
But we do have enough to kind of get the word across that, hey, there's a lot of critters around here. So we're going to call this Critter Day.
Okay.
At Just Outdoors, and we'll go through each one and we'll mention a little bit facts, specifics about each animal, and try to get the public a little more aware of what's around and what might be in their yard too.
Yeah,
somewhat like that.
A lot of it is.
Yeah. So you are the Assistant Wildlife Manager for the Grand Rapids area.
Correct.
DNR.
Correct.
Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I started my career in Grand Rapids back in 1989. And at that time, I worked with the non-game wildlife program. So those critters that we didn't shoot and trap, and sold things like eagles and loons and swans. Did that for about 12 years, and then in 2000, I went back over to the game side of stuff and worked over in Eveleth for a number of years before I came back here to Grand Rapids, and have been here. I've always lived in Grand Rapids. I just drove back and forth. But so I've been up here since 1989 and seen a lot of these critters out in the wild, and have had an opportunity to see them during my career working. Many of these are fur bears that we'll see during the trapping season.
Sure, that's right. And of course, a lot of your job was taking care of calls, informational calls, and complaints from the public too.
Correct. Right? We get a lot of those. A lot of people that call and want to know. You know, I've got these, like you said, all these. We live in the woods up here, so a lot of these have been here long before us. And just because we bought our house there doesn't mean they leave. So you're right. A lot of people call. I got a woodchuck, or you know, I've got something else. I got a skunk under my porch. What do I do? How do I get rid of it? Are you going to come out and take care of it for me? Which we don't do.
Which you don't do. Well, I'll tell you, we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some of the values of some of these animals still as fur bearers, and also how to identify them a little bit, because there are differences between males and females, and sizes, and all kinds of things here. So, but every one of the animals that we're going to be showing here live right around Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. Most of them.
And by the time we're done, we're probably going to have about 30 animals here.
We'll talk about 30.
We'll talk about 30. We have about 20 here that we'll show. We'll talk about the rest of them. And so why don't we start out right here, see what we can do.
Start with the ones that swim in the water.
The ones that swim in the water. Well, there's one right there.
Correct.
That is a skin of a muskrat.
Correct. We're missing the tail, so it's kind of hard for some people. Maybe they're used to seeing that
Yes.
naked tail.
But this is about the size of them.
Correct.
That you see average. They vary a little bit.
Yep.
Most of them are
Yep.
about the same size.
Yep.
So a little about this.
Well, like I said, we're started in the water, so there are aquatic ones. They tend to live in our marshy areas, like to feed on cattails, other aquatic vegetation. Right now is a good time. You can see them because they've been out building their houses. So if you're out looking at a wetland and you see a pile of cattails and other dead vegetation piled up, that's a muskrat house.
Yeah, I think if you just drive around Ice Lake right in Grand Rapids, you'll see them.
Probably.
There's a couple houses right there, right along the shore.
Definitely, if you look at the Mississippi River as you come into town,
Yes.
there's several ones out in that old rice bed out there. And so they feed on aquatic vegetation, and they have to feed all winter. So when there's ice over the lake or river or whatever water body they're living in, they still need to go out every day. So their house basically gives them a place to breathe. So
Yeah, because they got to have air.
they got to have air.
Yeah.
But now the lake's frozen over.
So how do they do
So
that?
they got to come up and either get into their house, which they can get a breath of air, or they have to go up into a bank den. Like if they're in a river system, they can go in an old beaver lodge or another bank area.
And their food comes from where then?
They're in the water. They're
Right
aquatic.
in the water.
Yeah, they're
Aquatic, so
aquatic.
I mean, they got to go down to the bottom of the lake or
Or they're eating
whatever
all
they can eat.
Yeah, whatever plants and stuff
Okay.
that they can see. You know, they're going to eat old cattail. They dig up cattail roots
Sure.
and things like that.
Sure.
But they're aquatic. You know, they eat aquatic vegetation all winter long.
Well, and also this is one of the most trapped animals in the state for fur bearer.
Yep.
It's they varied in price value for over the years like crazy.
Yeah, they can.
They've been to 50 cents all the way up to $11 a
Correct.
piece. It depends on the market, right?
For the trappers, they look at this. This is your gas money.
This is your
Yeah, you put your trap rats and you put them up and you get your gas money.
And I think they trap about over 1 million of them in the state every year.
Depending on
so.
where you're at and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course they change. All of our populations change. And a lot of that depends on fur price.
Okay, good. That's right.
Yep.
And that's how they set the seasons too, right? You're involved with that
Sure.
as far as
Yeah.
numbers. All right, this is related to, and some people mistake these in the water at a distance
Yes.
for a
the
beaver.
Bigger ones.
Because they see the
Correct.
head moving and they think,
Yep.
well,
So
there you go.
We have our bigger
This is
aquatic user. And they have this nice thick fur that keeps them
Yeah.
waterproof. And basically, this is what America was settled and grew on.
That's it right there.
These were
right.
trapped by the early trappers. They were sold as European.
1700s, yep.
Yep. They took them over to Europe where they made felt hats, and that's what everyone had to wear was a felt hat. And so they would take these beaver and catch them and pretty much almost wiped them out. It's amazing now that we look at how many we have.
Yes.
But at one time, you know, they were very, very rare.
They were actually rare in the 20s.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
No, but,
in
you
Minnesota,
know,
you're right,
they're
but
thick.
before they took them that long to come back.
Correct.
And you can trap out an animal like that.
Yep.
I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why there's seasons. That's
Yep.
why there's
So we keep 'em on.
limits and so on. There's no limit on that particular animal right now,
Correct.
but yet it's because of the value too. The value fluctuates on these too.
It does, and right
And
now
all
it's
over the
really
place.
down. And
Way
so
down.
We have a lot of beaver.
Yeah.
But again, they live in lakes, rivers, and so that freezes over.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to feed all winter long. They don't
Right.
hibernate. Both muskrats and beaver are not hibernators, and so they need to feed. So right now you'll notice all these sticks piled up in front of a beaver lodge, and that's basically their food pile.
That's called a feed bed, I guess.
feed bed. Yep.
And they come out and they use that all winter.
All winter long.
Hopefully they stockpiled enough.
Hopefully,
Right.
They hope they guess right on the winter time.
But you know, wintertime and these animals, these aquatic animals, is rough on them.
Yeah.
They don't all survive, do they?
No, because
No.
it depends on what kind of
Yeah.
winter we have, and
Yeah.
again, how much storage of food did you put up?
Sometimes if they come out in the spring and all of a sudden you get a cold spell,
Yeah.
freeze everything over, they can a lot of mortality here.
They
on
can,
some of these animals. yeah.
and of course they're trapped when fur prices are up, especially, you know, because they produce very readily. We have quite a bit.
Yeah.
So again, like you said, on muskrats and beaver, we don't have a limit because you know, they
Right.
both produce quite a bit of young and you know, do
But
well.
if you want to
so.
talk about the history of the area and the people coming in here from
Oh, yeah.
Europe, this is you can't talk about that without talking about the beaver.
Correct.
This is why they were here.
That was our economic engine.
And some rough times those folks went through.
They did,
trapping these
but
things,
they sure
so-
trapped a lot of them.
Boy, they did. Now here's the cousin right here.
And the last one of the aquatic ones that we'll talk about, and this is a river otter. And unlike now the muskrat and the beaver, these guys eat, they're predators, so they're eating fish, frogs, crayfish. And again, they do come out So they'll live in a river system and they'll find a hole. And they'll pop out, and you'll see these long skid trails,
Yeah.
and that's an otter
Yeah.
sliding across the ice.
Yeah,
and so
and
they'll
they-
move across the uplands and look for food and get in another spot where they can find some fish or crayfish.
Sure, and Grand Rapids have, because of the river systems we
Yeah.
have here all over, it wouldn't be hard to find an otter in this area.
Oh, they're
even
very
in the
common.
winter, and common, and even right close to Grand Rapids. I mean, right around Grand Rapids here.
Hey, if you go out-
Prairie River or whatever.
That's true, but I guarantee you, if you go out to the Mud Lake Dam
Yes.
on Mud Goose WMA, there's a family of otters almost every winter that sits up on the ice.
Sits right
you
up
can
there.
sit there and watch them if you're
Yeah.
willing to spend some time until they decide to come out. But you'll see all the dead crayfish
Yeah.
that are on the ice. They dive down, pick up a crayfish, get a fish, whatever, and they sit up on the ice.
Okay.
And it's a really good spot if in the wintertime, if you want to see an otter, you can just go
Yeah.
out there.
These are pretty valuable. They
Yep.
still hold a price pretty good. There is a limit on these.
There is a limit on these.
You know, these
limit-
vary from 2 to 3 every year.
Yeah, we get 4,
but
I
you
think,
can
is what
take
now.
4
And we just opened the season. They were, we used the word extirpated from southern Minnesota,
Yes.
which means they aren't extinct, which means gone forever. It just means they were non-existent in southern Minnesota.
They like clear water.
Well,
You know, I mean,
they'll live in rivers and stuff,
Yeah.
but they do need to find food.
Right.
But the big thing is, again, they're very susceptible to trapping. So southern Minnesota, they were just trapped out.
Yeah.
But with protection, and like you said, we limit the number that people take. They've reinvaded those river systems, and now actually we do have a season in southern Minnesota.
Now the difference between the beaver and the otter, the beaver has long guard hairs,
Yep.
long fur. This has really short fur.
It does.
And this yet survives in the winter with this short hair.
Correct.
So it's got to be really dense.
It is very dense, and again, if you look, it has the real thick
Yeah,
underfur. And the
Just
other thing,
really dense here.
they use oils to oil themselves up, and so they keep that so the water can't get in.
Okay.
And then that way it keeps them dry,
Yeah.
which is important if you're swimming around in an aquatic
Yeah,
environment.
you don't
in
want
winter.
the water to
touch
penetrate
your
to the skin.
Nope.
You
So
bet.
they have a lot of oils
Yeah.
on theirs, and they rub those oils in to keep their fur nice and clean, but also keep it some water
Well,
penetrating.
they're an animal that's been around for many years and built for winter.
Yeah,
There
they
you
are.
go. Okay, we're getting down. Now these are mustelides, right?
There's a
If you
big
wanna-
group of those,
You
yep.
want to tell the folks what a mustelide is?
Well,
why
just
they're-
something with glands, and it has
glands.
a scent.
And has a scent,
And
so-
so anything from the weasels, all the weasels are in that group, along with the skunks and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, we'll go through them all. There's about 7 or 8 of them here.
There's a whole bunch.
Do you want to talk about the weasel itself? That's what
Sure.
the class is named after,
Yep.
the weasel.
Yep, and that's the
So-
smallest one.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the smallest, and there's many
Of
kind
the
of weasels.
mustelides, uh-huh.
So we have long tails, but there's also a short tail. There's also a least weasel. So in Minnesota, we have like 3 different kinds of weasels. Now this one that you happen to bring today is set up for the winter.
Why is that?
Well, obviously, being snow,
Yes.
white is a good camouflage.
Yes.
But this animal in the summer is brown.
Yeah, you wouldn't
And
recognize
You
them.
wouldn't
You'd just
recognize
totally
them. You'd
different.
think they're totally different species, but they're not.
You think you may be looking at a mink or something
You
from
could.
a
It's
distance?
smaller, like
Smaller,
a baby. You might think
yeah.
it's a baby, but anyways, they switch color, and it makes sense. Obviously, in the summertime when everything's brown and green, to be white like this, you'd be a sitting duck for predators to find you.
Sure.
But
But
in
there's
the
a name. There's a
wintertime-
name for this.
A name for the weasel.
Ermine.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yep. Ermine.
So you hear ermine coats and ermine
Correct.
this, and
Correct.
that's what they're talking about.
That's what they're talking about.
I think it'd take a lot of these to make a coat, right?
It does take a lot.
But they have.
But they
Yeah,
do.
we did, yeah.
And they still do. They trap
They
them
still
out
do,
and
yeah.
they hit them. So this is the smallest one in the family. And then the next one up, which is the pine marten. And pine marten, again, used to only be found in Minnesota in the far, I mean, it used to be statewide, but in more recent times, their numbers had declined, and we only found them like way over in Lake and Cook counties. But again, through management of the season, for all these species that are trapped, the main thing is the season. I mean, that's keeping those regulations, keeping the amount of time that they trap. That's the number one thing. And so pine marten, their numbers have soared since the early 80s. And
Yeah,
now we
they
find
never
them-
had a season prior to '77.
Correct. And that's
And,
because
there
of the
were no
low
season.
numbers.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they said, well, there's enough around to have a season. I think they trapped the first one in Minnesota accidentally in the early '70s up around Grand Marais.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And all of a sudden, here they're right around Grand Rapids. I've seen them in Grand Rapids.
Well, we catch tons of them in Grand Rapids.
Yep.
Their numbers have soared. At one point, we estimated population to be over 16,000 in the state, and so they've expanded out of that
Yeah.
Lake and Cook County area, and are now found in Itasca County. And trappers it's actually one of the bigger number of animals that are brought into Itasca County.
That's right.
It used to be, we'll go to him next.
Should we talk about the orange neck?
We can.
Well, we'll compare that
We'll
to
compare to their
the
bigger cousin, because these are the two that get trapped together.
that and the mink too.
Correct.
Okay, yep.
But this one here is another one. You can hold that one up.
You bet.
The bigger cousin.
Yep.
You can see this is a fisher.
That's probably a male, huh? This one?
Yeah, it could be. Males are bigger. We were talking about
Yeah.
that. Males are bigger than females.
But this is I remember
so-
this is 48 inches long.
Yeah.
This one right here.
And it could be, again, the young males and old males, depending on the age and stuff. But these are the two that are, mostly what trappers in the Northwoods are looking for in the fall.
Yeah, and the seasons are real short now. It's like 6 days now,
yes.
and it starts at the end of November.
Correct. It starts this Saturday.
That's actually Saturday. So there will be people going out and trapping these. There's not a lot of trappers actually overall that take these because they're limited in area. But
and it's a skill.
It's a skill.
You just don't,
Tough to catch.
you just don't go and set something
Right.
out and they just come stepping
and one
in.
of the reasons is because they wander so far, right?
They do. They
I
have
mean, to get their food, they have to wander along. What do they eat?
Well,
Squirrels,
fishers,
is he?
well, they'll eat anything.
Yeah.
In the summer, they're eating bird eggs and they're eating, but squirrels, rabbits, things like that. A fisher has a female fisher has a home range of about 10 square miles. So they cover a long way, and so you're thinking about if you're trying to trap, you're trying to pick up that one female in a 10 square mile area.
Yeah.
And of course, the males have even bigger ranges because they have to overlap many females.
And again, the females are about twice as valuable as the males if you're going to see
Yeah,
them. So
it's interesting how
denser
that
fur,
goes.
I guess,
Yes.
something like that. So.
But anyways,
Okay.
both of these and they're real common. One thing very interesting that we just learned actually, both of these animals, they den in tree cavities. Okay, now just we always thought because we have brush piles and stuff like that, they're a weasel, they live on the ground, but we found out fishers only have their kits in tree cavities. They don't have ground nests. Now martin will sometimes be found in a down log or something, but only in trees for fisher, which was something we didn't know until a person in town here was doing a study and let us know. And of course that means you have to have a big tree. Obviously it's a big animal, it's not going to crawl into a 6-inch tree. So they got to have like a 19 or 20-inch tree. And so it's important. You got to have those big trees with the cavity in them so they can have their kits.
Yes, and the lumber people are noticing that right now more lately, aren't they? They're
Correct.
leaving trees for
Correct.
that type of thing.
That's what we try to do in our guidelines, to try to leave stuff for that, because we found out,
wipe
again,
them
we
out.
thought, whereas when we did the work on this, they also used tree cavities, but they were also found in tip-over mounds and some other stuff. So they weren't as tied to trees as the fisher was.
But you're talking about mature forests. For a lot of these, right? I mean, it helps because they have more trees that have cavities and so on, bigger trees.
Correct. And also their big cheap competitor, which we'll talk about later, are bobcats, which like that younger forest mixture. So having a big block of older forest, you can still manage it, but having that tree canopy, not having young regrowth coming up, that's what the bobcat likes more of. So.
Okay, well, interesting. Okay, that's the other one of the other.
Yeah.
Now I've seen these. I got a call one time. There was one right in Grand Rapids on the southeast part of town. I was in their garbage can, trying to get in their garbage can. So these things are wandering around a lot of times at night, and you'll see it. What is that? And
Exactly.
you think it's a cat or something like that.
Yep,
But they are around.
They are
around.
and you'll find them. I mean, you don't have to go very far out of town.
No.
We had one here at Bass Brook WMA, which is right in the middle of between Cohasset and Grand Rapids.
So it's interesting to find an animal like that was almost gone in Minnesota at one time.
Yep.
Okay, Martin Fisher. Okay, now the mink.
The mink. So
Here's the mink.
this is another one, and again, these can be very hard to tell. But the martin is one that lives all in the uplands. I mean, it's an upland forest species, where the mink is a semi-aquatic. It lives in the uplands, but it lives really close to water, and you'll see them entering the water to feed. They'll feed on everything. One of the main things they like to feed on is our earlier friend over there, the muskrat. They'll go into a muskrat house and dig a hole and get in there and try to eat the muskrat. So you'll see them entering in and out of water, and they're usually associated with water, where the pine martin is strictly, living in the forest.
Another thing about the fisher, it has nothing to do with fish.
No,
They do not eat fish.
They do not eat fish.
Nothing like that. So
they're an upland. They are eating rabbits and grouse and birds and everything else.
what I like to show is the different color of the neck.
Correct.
The white
Yep.
on the mink and the always orange on the
Pine marten.
So if you see something, you see an animal, you just flip it over, and if it's got orange, it's got to be a marten.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and very, very white on the mink. So,
correct.
All right. Now we got a couple more that are related
Yeah, they're
to
related.
these.
They're kind of in.
Not
They're cousins.
cousins. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not. They're not in the weasel family, but we have the skunk here, which probably everyone has seen. We get calls all the time about them. They're right here in town. They obviously have this white stripe down the back, and this is the striped skunk. Minnesota also has another species called the spotted skunk, sometimes called the civet cat. But
Yes.
as far as we
see
know,
them up here.
they're probably extirpated.
Okay.
We have not seen one in the state for a long, long time.
Oh.
So they're probably gone, but they used to be around. But now the striped skunk, which is very common, everyone has them, and they're found in your yard. Like I said, we get, like you were saying earlier, we get a lot of calls with people that are, talking about, I've got a skunk in my yard. What do I do? Or a lot of times we'll get a call in the summertime. I've got these little holes in my yard.
There you go.
What's doing
Yeah, they're about
this?
like that.
Yeah, they're about like that.
Yeah.
And they're digging for grubs.
Yep. And they go. Yep.
And, they go down a little bit. And
Certain
so-
times of the year, though, more.
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Well, they're looking for those June bug grubs.
Okay.
And so
yeah.
they dig those little holes, and that's a good way to tell you have a skunk in your yard.
And they do it at night.
They do it
These
at
are
night.
nocturnal. pretty
Yeah, they're
much,
nocturnal. Yeah. If you're
Okay.
seeing them out in the day, they can get rabies. So if you're seeing them out in the day, it's a good time to kind of stay away from them.
I found they're a pretty gentle animal. Really.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, I've seen them in traps, and I've gone up to them, and you just sit, and they don't spray. And if you can get a blanket over them or something, and lift them up and get them out of an area, that's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
And,
And that's why they can be so gentle, is because they do have a way of
yeah.
keeping you away from them if they don't like what you're
and
doing.
other animals too.
And other
sure.
animals. So when they do
So-
spray, that's something you gotta.
Yeah.
It's you don't get it out easy. So
The
that's
most-
why you don't want
yeah.
to get close to them.
The most sprayed critter around from these is, of course, your dog.
Yeah.
Everybody
Oh
does.
yeah. Yeah. They don't know better, and they run up there, and of course
Yeah,
they get a
yeah.
spoonful, and it's not something you get off them very easily or very soon. So
Do you have any
yeah.
remedies for that?
Nothing works good. There's all the tomato juice
Yeah,
and all those
but
other things, but it's
just time?
time. Time is the best cure for that.
Yeah,
So you get rid of it. You get rid of that smell.
All right. Here's another critter that actually is around here.
They are.
I've seen
This
them,
is-
not heavily, not
Correct.
big populations, but they're
No,
here.
they're again. They see them. They're nocturnal to the
Okay,
point where you
what do
don't
we
see
have
them
there?
around. This is called the badger, and badgers, are really a prairie, an animal of the prairie. They dig ground squirrels and stuff like that, but they like any sandy areas, and so any of our river sand plains that we have, we're going to have badgers, and we actually we don't see very many out on the prairie. Matter of fact, the state thought about listing them because of their really rarity in habitats on the prairie.
Has that been lately?
Yeah, like in the last 5 years, they talked about listing
because
them.
there used to be quite a few of them.
Well,
at
there
one
used to
time,
be,
yeah,
but again, we don't have
farming
much-
practices.
Yeah,
and-
we don't have a lot of prairie habitat left.
Right, yeah.
But here we've been telling them, hey, we see them in the forest, so we sent in a whole bunch of records.
And
to
they
say,
got the
look,
mask.
Yep, you got a mask on the front there.
Yeah.
It tells them they got really long claws, which we
Oh, boy,
can't
we
show
don't have them here, but they're
But yeah, they're formidable
bad,
because
yeah.
they're diggers. I mean, basically they hunt ground squirrels and other rodents like that, and so they basically get them by digging them out.
Yeah, my connection with these, they don't seem to be a real friendly animal.
They're not. They have a bad attitude.
Yes, they do.
So
Well, you can expect that because
Yep.
that's what they do. They're there to survive,
correct.
and there's probably
tough one.
they probably have a lot of animals that would go after them, predators on them.
No, they
too
can
many.
usually defend themselves. What they do
Pretty
is
good,
back
yeah.
themselves in one of their
Yeah.
holes, and then basically they have their claws and their sharp teeth,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nobody wants to mess with that.
They
So-
are a small animal.
Yeah, they're not huge.
No,
they're
but
not
they're-
overly huge, but they're
Something like that
you
that
know,
has a bad attitude, you're gonna
stay away from it because
problem.
again, if you're a predator, you can't be injured. You have to be at the top of your game all the time if you're going to survive. So
Excellent.
you're
That's
really
good.
not going to mix with a badger and
Sure.
possibly get injured, which then means you won't be able to feed yourself for the next month while you're healing. And
Yeah.
of course, no one else takes care of you. They don't have a government program that will
Yep.
bail them out when they're injured. So
Okay.
it's important that they don't. One that we don't have, but it kind of finishes off this
Yes.
group, is our friend the porcupine.
Yes.
And that's a hard skin to get because it's a little prickly.
Yep.
And so a lot of people, that's not a skin that a lot of people have out because it's a hard one to get and skin and prepare without getting yourself stuck with it.
But that is related to these.
Yeah, and it's very common in Itasca County.
Yes.
If you drive around on a winter day and just kind of look up in the trees, especially in the conifer trees,
Yeah.
it's very common that you'll see them. Obviously, we see them crossing the road and they get hit by cars because their defense is, oh, I have these stickers that you're not going to want to get me, and they don't realize cars going 60 aren't affected by those stickers.
What is their status as far as a porcupine? I mean, a lot of people I know, every time they see one, they'll shoot it. You know, they'll take it. That's not necessarily a good thing, is it?
Well, it's just not a necessary thing. I mean, they eat trees. That's what they eat. You know, that's what they do. So, yeah, they'll strip a few trees and they can kill them ultimately. But there are other trees that come up in their place, so they're not. It's not needed. But some people, especially if they're like in the tree farming business, they don't care for them in their tree farm that maybe girdles a few trees for them.
Tell us the connection between this animal and the porcupine.
Well, there's very, very few animals that will actually try to take a porcupine for those quills.
For food.
But the fisher is one animal that will. Again, that's not their main diet. They find much easier things to eat. But they will attack porcupines, and basically what we think they do is they're so quick, because they're in that weasel family, that they just keep jumping around and biting them in the face until they get a hold of them and kill them. And then after that, then they roll them over and can get it.
So they're aware of the quills.
Oh, they're aware of the quills, but they're quick and they can jump around. And it doesn't mean that one of them doesn't end up getting a mouthful of quills and that's unsuccessful. So like all predators, you're not successful every time you go out.
Trappers that skin these for resale sometimes will run into quills that are embedded in the animal's face and so on.
But you're right, that is one of the critters that is, well, probably one of the only critters. Everything else that usually is trying to attack a porcupine is because they're starving to death, and it's kind of a last ditch effort.
And we may come on one of these right here. Let's see
we
what
might,
we got. Okay, we're out of the ermine family, pretty much. Mustelidae, I guess, mustels. So now, cats.
We have the two cats. I'll let you hold that one. Be careful. You were warning me about the feet, so watch them.
Yes.
So these are the two cats that are native to Minnesota, and we find them, and they look very similar. You're saying, well, it looks like the same thing. What do you mean they're two different ones? And I'm holding the bobcat, and you're holding the lynx. And really, the way to tell is the tail.
There we go.
You know, on the camera there, it looks like they're both black. But if you tip that up, I've got some white, and this one here is black all the way around. Looks like it was dipped in like an inkwell.
Well, 2/3 the way around is the black.
Yep.
And that's basically, when you find an animal like this along the road, that's the first thing you should look at to determine what you have, is the tail. You can't go wrong on that.
Not for lynx and bobcat, you're right.
But you can go wrong on other things. You can mistake them to a degree.
They look very much, this one doesn't have his feet, so it's a little bit harder, but lynx do have very, very big feet.
Huge.
And again, because they live in an area that, they basically have to walk on top of snow. It's when the snow is deep. They used to be found Lake Cook County. Itasca County was very part of their middle of their home range, historically. Recently, not so much. There's changes in forest types that benefit bobcats over lynx. So now we find lynx mostly just up in Lake and Cook County. But we still have a population of them.
Yes, I remember when there was a season back in the early 80s. They had a season on these.
Correct.
And you were allowed to actually 5 totally on them.
And you still can catch 5 bobcat. And their numbers change. And again, they have a trapping season. We allow 5, and we've been as low as 300 up and had over 1,000 animals taken in a year.
Aiken County has a lot of bobcat, don't they? Seems like down in there.
And so we have a lot in Itasca all the way up to Cooch. Again, with the change, they really like the young aspen forest. They're hunting rabbits and grouse and squirrels and everything else they can find. And with the young forest, and that's why I said, you start taking a fisher who has this big home range, and she has to have those big trees, and all of a sudden you break that up where she doesn't have a big block of forest, so she's going from a little block through a bunch of regen, and she runs into a bobcat. And that's where they were finding, that's where they were losing most of their, most of the fisher.
Just a beautiful, beautiful fur.
It's a beautiful
got to be the softest fur out there among all these animals here. It's just amazing. I think it's used for, well, they make coats out of them.
They make coats out of them.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
And not just collar. These are more of a collar animal type collars and things like that.
Yep. But they make coats out of these. It takes many of them, like you said. You got to put them together. It's not just one cat, but they put them together. And the ones out west, the bellies are more spotted than ours. Ours don't have very spotted bellies. And for the rough, this is the coat, but then
Yes.
for the ruff, they like those spots.
And the spots are what makes it valuable.
Yes.
When you
Yes,
when
you're
you sell
looking at
these,
the
the fur buyer will look at the spots.
Yep.
And the more spots, the higher price.
Correct. And
Correct.
if you were selling this, I mean, we're having these to show for people.
Right,
We're trying
right.
to show that. But if you were actually selling them in fur, it's called being cased, and the animal's in whole, and you only have a little slit down at the bottom. You don't cut them up the belly if you're doing this.
That's
for
what this is. This is
sellers.
cased.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this is not slit up the belly.
Yep. So then,
And,
if you had that nice belly fur there,
Yeah,
If
and
it
of
was a
course,
bobcat,
you
it's a
don't
lynx.
see that on the
not
on
on
the
a
lynx. So, well, talk about the tips of the ears. No, both
Correct.
bobcats have tips on the ears.
Yeah,
too.
and like you said, the tip of the tail
Is the
is
big one.
really the only way to definitive, because usually lynx have the big long, and you can see in this bobcat he
Not
has
all
no
the time,
tufts.
though, but yeah.
But they usually have very long tufts. Bobcats don't. But occasionally you'll get a bobcat that has a
Right.
longer one and a lynx that has a smaller one. So it's not. But typically, the longer tuft on a
Yeah.
or on a lynx, along with the bigger feet.
Mm-hmm.
But then that tail really gives it out. That's really what tells you what
And
it
I
is.
think most folks think that the lynx are a lot bigger than the bobcat, and that's not true
No,
at all. In fact,
no.
sometimes they're smaller.
Yeah. And again, males are bigger than the females. Part of that comes from they have very, very long legs. If you ever see them, they have these really long legs with those big feet.
Yes.
So it makes them look bigger,
Bigger.
but they're really just taller.
They're taller. They aren't
Yes.
heavier.
No,
at
they're
all.
not. They're not.
Because most of the time I saw furs coming in to be tagged, I never saw lynx bigger than bobcat.
No.
We've had 38-pound bobcats come
Correct.
in, and sometimes these were 15 pounds, something
Correct.
like that. So-
Again, males are much bigger than females. So if you
Yes. Mm-hmm.
get a male lynx, he's going to be a lot bigger than a female bobcat.
Good information.
So
There you go.
then one other cat we should just mention.
Yes.
We don't have a fur for it because again they're not found in Minnesota anymore, and that's the mountain lion, or some people call it cougar, puma.
Puma.
You know,
They're all
the
the same.
different names. They're all the same. And we don't have a population of mountain lions in Minnesota or in Itasca County, but the nearest population is out in the Dakotas, and occasionally males leave looking for females, and they'll wander through the state of Minnesota.
I'll come east.
And they'll come east looking for, there's no territories. There are all these young males. The older adult males have taken the territories out there. And so they're looking to set up house on their own. And so they go wandering and they get into Minnesota and Wisconsin. And they go, well, there's some good forest here and there's lots of deer. And they wander around looking for a female.
That's one of the calls your department gets.
We get a
annually.
lot of those calls.
And what are they really seeing out there?
You know, it goes all over the board. Mostly it's a bobcat, but surprisingly we get people that send us pictures of house cats that they think they're a cougar. I had a woman send me the tracks of a fisher, and she had seen it run through the yard and thought it was, she sent me a question saying, I think I might have seen it. I said, well, send me the tracks. And before I could get back, she sent me a picture of a mountain lion. She said, that's what I saw, that's what I saw. And unfortunately, I had to tell her, well, you sent me tracks of a fisher. And she said, yeah, that's what my father-in-law told me too. So they see all kinds of things.
Contrast is a big thing in distance when you see
is.
things like that. The darker the animal, and if it gets a white background, that's going to be huge.
Correct.
I've had calls where they thought they saw a bear.
Yeah.
It was a fisher.
It's hard, but mountain lions come through. Probably
Yes.
one of the most interesting cases, and the only reason we know this is because we collect DNA when we can. We had a mountain lion that moved through Minnesota and Wisconsin. They disappear. We never know what happens, whether they go back or what. But like 2 years later, one got run over in Connecticut. Oh. And so of course, every state takes any DNA they get from a mountain lion because not very many states have them. And it turned out that cat was the cat that 2 years earlier had been in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And how it got there, we'll never know. But you talk about wide-ranging. Yeah, it walked. Didn't fly, but whether it went to Canada or stayed in the United States, I don't know if it had its passport.
That's quite a distance for
yes,
an animal.
exactly.
Like
you think from it. So.
And they're basically when they're looking for food.
Well, no, they're looking for love.
Love, yeah. And
That's
females.
That's what they're looking for.
Sure, the males.
And yeah, they're all males. We've never had a female.
Never
And
had a
that would be another important piece is if one of these, and we've had probably 5 or 6 that were killed in Minnesota, either hit by a car or some have been shot.
All males.
And they've all been males. So until we get that first female. But, it is something for the public to know is that yes, they occasionally come, but they're not something that we don't have a population of them yet.
All right, great. Now we got the cats. Now what do we got here?
Well,
should we
go to the? Let's go to these guys.
Okay.
We'll save them for the end.
Those
Those
are
odds and ends.
Odds and ends here, yeah.
So why don't you hold that one and I'll hold this one, because these are the two different fox species that we find in Itasca County. Okay, so I'm holding the red fox, and you're holding the gray fox.
Correct.
And a lot of people may not know that they have gray foxes. They're a pretty secretive critter. You don't see them a lot, but they're very, very common in Itasca County. Matter of fact, we had a female that had her litter in our complex over here on Highway 2. Oh, she was wandering around on the parking lot, and
really,
yeah, the staff were getting pictures of her and stuff like that.
A gray fox.
A gray fox. Yeah.
Wow.
So yes, they're very common here in Itasca County, and you just don't get to see them as much as you do the more common red fox. And
Okay.
you'll always see they have this. Well, this one's tip isn't as white, but a lot of times they'll have a big white tip you'll see on the tail.
White tip, and it seems like when they run, they hold their tail straight out, don't
Yeah,
they?
they can.
Where these, they kind of go along the ground when they're running that.
And they have shorter legs, actually. I don't know if it'll show on the camera, but
What has shorter legs?
the gray fox.
The gray fox has shorter legs. Oh yeah, it does. Sure it does.
It's not, but
Okay.
it's definitely noticeable on a live animal. You'll notice that.
How about the white here?
First,
Because they're both. If you turn it around like that, they're both.
Yep.
I mean, they got red and white. Is there more white generally on a red fox?
Not generally, but again, and we'll talk about that later with animals. The hair color on them can change dramatically, so it's not always the case. But typically, you'll see this big kind of red or white patch on a red fox.
On the red fox, you'll see a little bit of it up here. How about the head itself? The ears or anything like that?
It's just the colors.
The colors.
You're not ever going to see a red fox that has
With
this
the gray.
black,
black on
they're black and gray
the
colors.
muzzle.
And the muzzle, yeah. I mean, you look
Okay,
at,
sure.
you look at that. And,
there you go. All right.
yeah.
Great. All right. So, if folks didn't realize there were two kinds of fox around,
Correct.
here you go.
We have two of them.
And it's probably about equal, huh? I don't know.
Yeah, probably the numbers change and stuff. We don't really have a survey, so we don't really have a way of
These are new to the area, though.
They're more common than they used to be. Correct. And
Yes.
I can't tell you why right now, but yeah, you just didn't see them. But now they're, like I said, we had them.
Might you possibly see this in a tree?
They will. They don't climb up vertically, but yes, if like a tree that has like an angle to it, they will hop up there.
And
and
red fox won't.
Red fox doesn't.
No. So these are sometimes tree dwellers.
Yeah, they don't climb up to the top or anything.
It's not their favorite place to be, but they can.
But they'll go up the edges of it and be able to get there.
Interesting. Well, great. Fox. And there we go.
And then
now,
the medium cousin.
The medium cousin. These are doggy type.
They're doggy type
animals, right?
Yep,
I mean, in the same class.
Correct. And that's the small. And then we have here. I'll let you hold the medium.
Okay.
And I'll grab the large. Okay. So these are the other two in the family, and of course, Tom, you're holding the coyote, sometimes called a brush wolf. But and then I'm holding the timber wolf or gray wolf.
Not a huge timber wolf, but a fairly large coyote.
But it's still.
I mean, there's a lot of difference.
You can't tell because the camera can't go to the floor, but my wolf is touching the ground, and your coyote's still at our knees. So,
so that's at least 6 foot.
Yeah.
Up there.
Yeah, because that's what I am.
Yeah, and here's I'm touching the ground right here. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So there's the difference.
Yeah. But
so much larger.
Again, identification. People see these.
Correct.
And they think they're these. Because of that contrast thing.
Yes. It's hard to see it unless you can get them. Vocalizations, you'll never mistake. A coyote has a yip,
yip, yip, yip,
yip, yip, yip, and this guy has a deep-throated howl. And it's strictly size. And you got to have that reference, but you're right. You got to look at it. Typically, coyotes have a much more pointed nose, where a timber wolf, has this big, huge square nose. So, and again, it's a little bit hard to see on the skins because that's how we hang them.
Yeah.
But on a live animal, this is much more squared and blocky, and the coyote is much more tapered and pointy.
And if you see an animal out there, and the first thing you think is, boy, it has long legs.
It's a timber wolf.
Timber wolf.
Yeah. And again, after it's left, if you go look at the tracks, a timber wolf's track
there's
is
no
much
comparison.
much larger. It's much bigger.
And these are unprotected.
Yes, coyotes are unprotected right now.
You can take these at any time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right now, wolves are still under protection, but
Yeah,
we're
what's the
hoping
deal?
to get that back.
Okay, you're hoping to get it back.
Yeah, it's messed up with the federal
It's been
laws.
back and forth the last 5 years.
It has, and right now they're kind of just waiting for legislation. That's how they ended up taking care of it out west. was
But
just
right now, federally protected.
federally protected, so we can't really do any harvest now. But as soon as the state gets it back,
It'll probably be a seasons or whatever, like there was.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other interesting thing before we put these guys down, the dog family, they don't like each other. So if you're a timber wolf, you don't like coyotes. And if there's any coyotes in your area, you will go out of your way to take care of them. Okay? Same thing, as a coyote, you don't like your younger cousin, the fox. And so if you're in an area where coyotes move in, you will notice a dramatic drop in your fox numbers. So they don't like each other and they don't tolerate each other. So if you got timber wolves, you won't have a lot of coyotes. They usually have to find areas in between packs or
Kind of goes by size, doesn't it? The
well,
bigger,
it does
bigger
a little
boy
bit.
you are,
the bigger boy you are. But yet you don't. If you're a big boy, you don't care about your smaller cousin. They don't really chase after
but the
fox.
one that's close.
But they won't. And that also explains why then you think, well, then to them a dog, your pet, your family Labrador, your family Golden Retriever, is much more coyote size to them, and so they say no, you are. Yeah, and they don't tolerate other wolf packs in their territory. So
yeah, they fight with each other.
They'll fight with each other when there's no food around and there's a lack of food. Then they fight over each other, and that's how they control their own populations. Is when we have low deer numbers and there's no food out there, or we have a very mild winter and they can't fight. Well, then they start fighting to try to get wherever there's a lot of deer or where they can find deer, and they kill each other.
But if you see timber wolves in an area, you know there's deer there.
Yeah.
There's feeding.
There's some.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be there.
Correct. Otherwise, they'll be fighting with their neighbors to find the deer there is.
Okay. Very good. Excellent information there. What else we got there? Is that okay? How about the difference in? You got another timber wolf here. Did you want to?
We could. You want to do
show
that?
the difference?
Well, or we can do that.
Yeah,
now.
let's do that right now.
Let's do that now.
Since we got okay.
We have two here, and just like we come in redheads, blondes, and brunettes. All animals come in different colors. This is kind of what you think of as a standard color as a timber wolf. And you can see this one is much more silvery and black colored. Doesn't have the typical gray. And they do come in an all black, where they're much more black. And we see this in all critters. It's not just in wolves. Probably the best example is in our gray squirrel. Everyone thinks of your gray squirrel, and then now we have black gray squirrels. They're still a gray squirrel, they just have a black coat. And when I first came to Grand Rapids in the late 80s, you never saw a black colored squirrel. Now they're very, very common.
Very common all over, and they go from year to year. Sometimes you won't see any. Other years will be majority of black squirrels.
Correct.
So it's just a color phase.
It's just a color phase, along with the other one you get is albino. So gray squirrels, when I was going to the university, there was a little population of albino, and it was very common to have a whole bunch of albinos around the university.
Yeah, I've seen them here.
Yeah,
around this
they're
area.
just not as rare, or they're not as common when you get
Right.
out of that because of predators. They can
Predator's going to hone in on a white squirrel.
Well, yeah, think about a white squirrel in the middle of summer. It's not a very good camouflage, so that doesn't work on you. But
okay, let's talk about size here a little bit, because everybody thinks they're 130 pounds.
Yeah.
No.
No.
This is 70 pounds here.
Males are bigger again.
A little bit, yep.
So a female's going to be between, like, say, 60 and 70 pounds, and the males normally are between 70, 80, but occasionally
you get a big one.
we get a big one.
Yeah.
And
and you found that out during the hunting season that was on about 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yep.
They came in, you looked at all
along
those.
with we've been doing studies on timber wolves for many, many years,
Yeah.
and so we have radio collars on them.
Yeah.
And occasionally we catch a 100-pounder. Usually those heavier weights come with the winter fur, because again, winter fur. Both of these have actually winter coats. The summer timber wolf coat is not very attractive, so both of these have winter coats, real thick and fur. In the summer they shed all that fur, and it's a pretty skinny coat.
Yeah.
Obviously they're trying to keep cool.
These have always been around Minnesota.
Yes, Minnesota is the only state in the lower 48 that didn't extirpate their wolves. Basically, every other state they were extirpated in except for Minnesota.
And almost every state had wolves.
Oh yeah. Every state
okay.
did have wolves.
Did have wolves.
To some extent.
Yes.
There's
even the southern states.
Yeah, there was a smaller, the red wolf.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different species, but it's a smaller wolf. And then out in the Rocky Mountains in the southern U.S., they had the Mexican wolf, which is a subspecies, a smaller species.
Sure.
But yeah, most states had some amount of wolves. But during the early settlement period, obviously, they were not looked upon fairly.
But the wolves were there for a reason. That's to keep the populations of caribou and moose and deer.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. If you want to look at, if your viewers want to look at some interesting stuff, just go on and type in some of the stuff they've been doing out in Yellowstone. Wolves were extirpated from Yellowstone, and then they were reintroduced, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago.
Yep.
And they found all sorts of interesting little tidbits. Elk numbers were very, very high, and when the wolves came back and started eating them, first of all, the numbers went down, but also elk had to be more wary. They couldn't just go hang out, out by the stream bed and eat all day. They had to watch out because wolves would eat them. So they started moving away, and all of a sudden those stream areas started recovering. All of a sudden they started getting brush back along them and stuff that elk would always keep down. Well, then all of a sudden that allowed beaver to move back in. Beaver were pretty much gone from those streams, and because there was no food. So there's some really interesting interactions.
Everything's related.
Wolves eat big game. The Farley Mowat story is not something that's really true. You aren't going to have mice and rabbits that sustain wolves. They got to have either deer or elk or caribou or something big to eat. And then they eat beaver at a certain time of the year.
Sure.
They need to have big game animals, and that's what they survive on.
Okay.
So,
well, anytime you get away from the natural element of what it used to be without us around, that's where actually everything eventually goes back to become numerous again.
Correct.
It seems that way.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we also found out that animals don't do well, like the prey animals, they don't do well when they don't have the predators to kind of keep them. There's a very, very famous study done in Arizona where they eliminated all the predators thinking that, this would be great for deer. And it was in a short term. Deer numbers increased dramatically, so much so that they basically ate all the food off their range.
Yeah, I remember that study back in the 50s there.
Kaibab Plateau.
Yep.
And they basically crashed to almost zero because they had no food
predators.
to eat. Yeah, well, there was no predators, so they had no food. They ate themselves basically out of house and home. So having a balance, but it is a balance. I mean, you need to have a little bit of each.
That's what the Department of Natural Resources tries to do when they set the seasons.
Correct. And that's why, once wolves come back, we'll have a season again.
Sure.
So.
All right, we're getting toward the end here. What do we got here?
Now we got a big one.
The big boy, huh? Well, it's big, but we've talked about that.
Yeah. it's big for us to hold up today.
It's big, but as far as bears go,
it's not
it's
huge.
an average bear.
It's an average bear, exactly. And bears are another one, and you can see why. They're black and they're dark, and everyone looks at them and goes, God, they're all 300 pounds. But most of our bears are in that 200 to 270 pound range. We do get big bears that get into certain food sources that do tip the scales. Obviously, when you leave Itasca County and you get out to farm country where they're feeding on corn and other things, they get a lot bigger. But here in Itasca County, a normal everyday size bears is like 250. Though
no, that's an undressed bear.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will say, they probably are gaining a little bit of weight because one of their favorite foods, and probably the biggest call I get every spring, are bears in my bird feeder. And black oil sunflower seed is the best food.
High protein.
Yes, and it's high fat and everything, and so they're just attracted to them, and you're not going to get rid of them as long as that sunflower seed is
Basically,
around.
in some areas, you could actually call them bear feeders.
They are.
But I mean, sometimes birds come.
But but it's an expensive thing because unfortunately bears are not good guests.
No.
And they tend to destroy your bird.
But they're so not dangerous. To me, they just are a very docile type of animal.
They are, and they are a big animal
because they're big. But otherwise,
they're big, and of course, again, as we get, we're trying to kind of recover the population because it kind of went down there for a while. And, and so we have a bunch of young bears running around right now. And again, we get bears that live here in town, Cohasset, Grand Rapids, other range cities, and they can be very tolerant because, again, they're feeding on bird feeders all the time, and they get used to people, and they're kind of looking for that. And so, you know, in the old days, people would call and say, "Yeah, just go bang 2 pots together," and they'll go running away, and they did. But now you get bears that basically
might even attract them now.
Well, it might. They basically have grown up in and around Grand Rapids their whole lives, and so they're not as fearful.
No, this bear, you know, it looks big and everything. This was about 150 pounds.
Yeah,
is what this was.
I know.
So that, you know, it looks
looks
big,
huge,
but 150 pounds.
Yeah,
you know. So that's about the average that I've seen over the years. You know, something like that.
Yep.
So yeah,
so
interesting.
We call bears omnivores because they eat anything. They eat both plant material and meat materials. They're obviously eating deer fawns when they can. Ants and other meat, but then they're eating berries and stuff like that. The other omnivore that we have here in Itasca County is our friend the raccoon.
And the ringtail type.
The ringtail,
yep.
And he's got the old bandit mask on him. It's kind of hard to see, but you might be able to see that. Yep. Again, they're very common. They're living here in town, and everyone sees them squashed on the highway. But you know, they're the other omnivore. They're eating anything. You'll see them down in aquatic areas catching fish and things like that, and frogs and stuff down there. And
it's hard to see just one of these. They're always kind of together, aren't they?
Well, again, mom has a group, and you usually don't see dad. He doesn't hang out with the family, and so it's not. But when you see them squashed on the road, a lot of times, sometimes you see the whole family, but a lot of times it's a single.
Any way to keep these things away from your house or your area that you live, other than shooting them, you know,
trapping them, but keeping stuff cleaned and picked up.
That's all it is,
you know, because they're definitely
garbage and bird feeders.
Yep,
right?
Exactly. and again, they're looking for
dog food.
Dog food. They'll come in if you leave your dog.
Those
food
three
out.
Biggies, yeah.
Yeah, they're out.
That's why you have bears and raccoons and everything else coming in.
Yep,
usually,
exactly. So they're.
You can't blame the animal for they're looking for food.
No, and again, if you get a free food source, especially something like birdseed, like I said, you can't beat it.
But if you take some advice and say, I'll clean up my area there, you're not going to have these.
Correct.
Right. So they don't come over just to say hi.
No. No, they're there for a reason, and you know, they typically den in big trees. And again, we don't have as many big trees. So what's the next thing next to a big tree? Tom's attic. Sure. It works very well as a big tree.
Barns
or garages. So anytime they can get up inside there, you know, then that works.
Abandoned houses, you used to see them in those things all the time.
Because that's functioning as a big tree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they work on do that.
You don't see a lot of these in the deeper woods.
No.
Do you?
They're there.
This was trapped in the deep woods.
They're again,
they're very rare.
Because as a regular species, they're very tied to aquatic habitats. So you're going to find them in the riparian zones. You're going to find them around the marshes. Because they're typical food. If
frogs
and things like that, they can get crayfish. So whatever they can get there, eggs, stuff like that. So the reason we find them more in the big woods is they've expanded to take advantage of our, you know, bird feeders, garbage. You know, heck, I had them growing up in the Twin Cities. They'd run up and down the sewers, and then they'd come out at night. They're night feeders also, and they'd come out of the sewers and knock over your garbage can and feed on your garbage. So yes, we mostly would associate them with aquatics, but now
interesting animals, but you don't want to get close to them.
No, they can be kind of nasty.
Kind of nasty. Yeah.
So
now
the last thing that we don't have the skins for, the last kind of big group of family of animals we have is the deer family.
Deer family.
Yes, the hoofed guys.
Animals.
And they have such big skins that they're hard to get a hold of. But basically, two that we find in Itasca County today is the white-tailed deer, which is it's by far the most common. It's the most common ungulate we have in the whole state. And then the other one is the moose. And we still get reportings, especially up in that Sherry Lake stuff north of Nashville.
I was just going to say northeastern Itasca County.
I saw a
wild area up there.
It is. It's got some bigger cuts in there. They like those big cuts. I just saw a moose and her calf like 2 years ago coming back down on Highway 65. So those are the two that are most common. Historically, we may have had elk, which is pretty much now only in northwestern Minnesota, and then also woodland caribou, which are now extirpated. We have no woodland caribou left. The closest populations are up in Canada.
Well, like right around Itasca County, isn't it true at one time it was woodland caribou?
We could have had a lot of moose.
A lot of moose.
This was big moose country.
Big moose country. No deer.
No deer. The deer were in southern Minnesota. They were in that transition. They like to have.
They moved into southern Minnesota not that long before then. I mean, they weren't there permanent, were they?
They always were in Minnesota, but see, you have to realize before we had conservation offices and there was no seasons, most of our big game species. I mean, we extirpated elk. We hunted them to a non-existence. Deer were almost hunted to non-existent in most states. Moose were pushed back. Like I said, we got rid of caribou and stuff. So a lot of species were hunted. Canada geese were almost non-existent in most of the eastern
Hard to
states.
believe, isn't it?
I know, hard to believe. I mean, you look at that. Same thing with turkeys.
Yes.
Turkeys were almost non-existent because of just subsistence hunting that settlers until the turn of the century when we decided we're not going to have any of these things left if we don't have some conservation and they started hunting.
Early 1900s, the teens in there, and that's when people started to be aware that we got to conserve things.
Correct.
Because they're not sustainable on them,
Correct. And you can't, if you're going to feed on deer your whole life, you're going to finally wipe them out. So.
But you look back at some of the regulations in the 20s and mid-20s, there were 2 years there that there was no deer season.
Correct. Wow.
No deer season. There were no deer.
Even in the 70s.
We had one,
70 and 71.
That's true.
There was
not that long ago, was there?
Two bad winters. And actually that gave us, prior to that, we used to basically always get an either sex license.
Yeah.
And that was the advent of, if you protect does, you can really increase deer population. So we then went to seasons where we would decide if the season was high, you could shoot a doe, but if the season or the number population was low, then we would have you shoot.
Yeah, I think the regulations, you got to look at history on a lot of this to determine if you're a young hunter, why are the regulations here?
Correct.
And why do we have deer around here? It's because of the regulations, really.
Correct.
It's just the way we manage the deer.
Yeah.
And I think overall, generally, it's a hit and miss proposition because it's all new science. But once you got into it, I think things are looking pretty good.
Oh yeah, and we've learned a lot about deer and realize now, and I think we've really shown that the winter of 95, 96, and then also the winter of 2013, the deer population took a real hit because of the really tremendous.
Deer themselves aren't necessarily built for tough winters, are they? They were never normally in an area like this where there's tough winters. This is an artificial environment for deer, isn't it?
Yes, and it's because of the changing of the timber harvesting that we do, and the aspen domination and smaller cuts. We don't typically do big cuts, which moose like. But you're right, moose are built for the deep, deep snow. They can plow through it. And that's why we still find them today in far northeastern Minnesota, where they do get more snow still.
And again, people try to judge whether the temperatures or the snow affect the deer in a bad winter. It's more the snow depth, isn't it, now they're finding, than it is the temperatures.
Correct. We keep track of our WSI, and basically if you're over 15 inches of snow, you get a point, and every day you're below 0, you get a point.
That's been doing every year.
We do that, and when you get over 100, you start to get concerned when you add those two numbers together. And we still require both because they do, but yes, you're right. Obviously, if you have very, very deep snow and you're a deer, you can't move around. You start plowing snow and you burn up a lot of calories, and then they can't get to it. That's why, interestingly enough, when we had our a deer study, it was a 12-year deer study here in Itasca County and in part of Cass. They found that in mild winters, deer don't necessarily have to migrate to a deer yard. But in those hard winters, it's important that they have that good thermal cover.
Keep that habitat there.
So they have a place to go, but then they still need to have the food, and they won't travel great distances to get that food because, again, that can't plow through that deep, deep snow.
I've seen some bad winters over the years, and then the dogs, your neighbor dog starts to take over in March when the snow gets hard packed and so on.
Correct. They'll do that, along with, of course, wolves, and feed on it, and they'll do some surplus killing, but they usually go back and eventually clean up the...
Now, one last question on the coyotes. Do they kill deer?
They can, and especially in these winters that we're talking about, when they get that crust on top of the snow and they can get up, then they have a better chance. It's hard for them, a healthy, if it's less snow and they're not up high, it's hard for them to get up there.
What about another thing, the timber wolf? Did they kill deer all year for food?
Yeah.
All year long?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's not in the wintertime.
No, it's year-round, except for there's a small time when beaver have to come out.
Yes.
Like we were talking about, they store that food. They've been
Yeah.
living underneath that ice. All of a sudden, springtime comes, things open up, their food's gone.
Vulnerable.
And they got to come out on shore to feed because they haven't been feeding, or whatever they've had is what's left. And so at that point, you'll see timber wolves attack beaver, and you'll see that little uptick. But for the rest of the year, it's either deer or moose in this state now. Now, of course, with the increase in elk population, I'm sure there are wolf packs over in that northwest part of the state that are hunting elk.
Sure.
But Minnesota, deer, and we see that with our wolf population that we do. When our deer numbers are higher, our wolf numbers are higher. And when we reduced the population a few years back, the wolf numbers went down too. So
Okay, sure. It's all connected.
yeah, it's all connected.
Well, this has been great. This has been great. We covered pretty much everything, the squirrels and the whole thing. And,
squirrels, yeah.
We don't have any squirrel hides, but everyone knows what a squirrel looks like.
Yeah, we have a couple species. You got gray and flying squirrels. Those are probably the most
Flying squirrels is another one that's only out at night.
Only out at night. So
people don't know if they're around. They don't think they have them, but
Correct.
sometimes their bird feeder is a little lower in the morning.
Yep.
Could be the flying squirrels going in
Exactly.
there. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you coming in, Jeff
No
Hines.
problem, Tom.
This was great.
It was.
Got
Thank
a lot
you.
of information. I hope everybody out there kind of gleaned a little something out of this. I'm sure they did. Even I do after I talk to somebody that's informative about these species. And it's great to know that we're living in an area that can support something like this.
Correct.
It's still a wild area here.
It is very wild.
Let's just keep it that way if we can. It's unique to live here, and this is why we do it, and this is one of the reasons. Have critters like this. So, okay. Thank you, folks, for watching Just Outdoors, and remember, stay informed.